point out that there's a kind of trend here that needs to be questioned and more light needs to be shined on it.
So I would ask, hearing you describe some of the particulars, are you suggesting that these are angles other news outlets in the area are not covering?
I don't think that, I mean, certainly local TV news isn't going to go and spend the equivalent amount of time on these kinds of stories.
No,
I mean, local TV news is not. If the CA did a story like that, I didn't see it.
Okay.
I mean, it's been interesting. I mean, the CA, we took, 10 people or something like that.
That's it? Because I thought you were probably...
And then they've replaced them and then some. I mean, they've actually added back, they added 10 people, and plus, I think they got permission to add another 5 from the corporate folks. And so, and they've hired some good folks. They've hired a lot of folks who don't know the market, and that's just the nature of things, but they've hired some good folks. And I'll be honest, I don't look at their paper every day, and that's not because I just hate it, it's just I just don't have time, so I look at it every day.
But the pitch is supposed to be that this is something different. So again,
the
question that I was asking, and this is what we were leaning into last time, like how are you even measuring what the specific... Let me ask this, because I've gotten some feedback from some others. Correct me. Well, no. What is your demographic? What can you say about your readership, the median income?
I can say it's still muddy. We have more data than we had, whatever that, back when I was last year. We don't ask, so for paid subscribers, we don't ask even zip code. If you're a paid subscriber, you're past the paywall and you're doing that. All we know, we just know your name and your credit card number. So we can, I guess you could go through and kind of extrapolate male versus female, but you can even add,
But you do get zip code.
We don't get zip code on the credit
card. But the card would at least give you zip code.
We allow you to run it without the zip code. Or we don't capture it. We're not allowed to, because that what it was. We looked at this actually because we were for all kinds of reasons. I'm looking at Preston, our marketing guy. We don't capture it. You might have to enter it, but we don't. It goes through the third party, and we don't get to keep it. And that's a security thing. I like to have that. That doesn't have anything to do with the questions you're asking me. I'd like to have it for all kinds of reasons.
In a sense, I want to be clear and say, from a security standpoint, I'm like, okay. But I want to go back to something that I said last time when I think about the amount of funding you were able to secure. And I could just imagine, you should remember I said, man, this must be a wonderful thing, right? Because I could just imagine, African Americans making pictures to some of the people who you ultimately probably, and I don't know all of your funders, and I'm not doing all of that. You should share, I would say, as much as you possibly can who those contributors are, but I can just imagine, because I've been in rooms where people were asking for $5,000 and would scrutinize the proposal to the degree by which you needed a 5 and 6 and 7 year plan.
Well, we have a 6-year plan. Absolutely.
6?
Yeah.
I said 7. And really I want to say 7 to 10, but okay. But so all of that notwithstanding, I just say, it's I'm not sure how much of the infrastructure is already in place to provide the type of services you have been promising to the people who I think you have been making the promise to. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think our job is like back to the hoodie article. The hoodie article is not about us saying they should overturn all these hoodie policies.
Stereotype policies.
Yeah, that's not what we're saying, because we're trying to be as kind of an objective news source. So what I think about that personally, or Yo, or our, that's different. And Otis might, or Mike, or a guest columnist might opine and say this is ridiculous, and these are stereotypes, and these are destructive, and I might well agree with that. Mm-hmm. But I can't say that as the editor. As the editor, we got to write about what's happening and shine a light on things like that. Okay. And I think in that sense, if we can take a calm, measured, thoughtful, deep to relatively deep look at any of these sorts of issues, that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to put that news out there and reach as many people as possible across all amendments. But we're not trying to do it through opinion. So we're not trying to do it by saying, hey, I embrace everything you say politically, and I'm going to speak to all the people who follow you because I'm going to have that take on everything I'm gonna be explicitly like, this is bad and this is good. We don't do that.
Let me interject because you put something on the table I want to lean into. All of Memphis is what you said.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, right. Because now we started getting more concretely into demographic target audience, so on and so forth. What about the county? Is this, when you all are producing the material from an administrative and executive standpoint, is your concept of who you are reaching people out in Arlington?
We want to reach our coverage area. The area we coverage is the city and county. So,
City and county.
Yeah, city and county is meant to be.
So South Haven, no.
We will
West
do.
Memphis, no.
We will do. How would I put it? We will do business and community related stories outside Memphis that have an impact on Memphis.
Okay.
So if
But the centerpiece is
so we're not going to cover the South Haven mayor's race. But if South Haven gets a big distribution center from Memphis or hires, we're going to cover that. Or when the bike lanes and all the recreational stuff opened in West Memphis, we've written about that. The new the expansion of gambling at what's that place called, the dog track. That has economic impact, and social impact. Economic and social impact on Memphis. So we're going to write about that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, in terms of mayor's races, political races, neighborhoods, we are limiting ourselves to Memphis and Shelby County, and then we have Sam Stockard up in Nashville covering the governor and legislature and all that. Ideally, trying to look at the legislature through the eyes of Memphis, or what has impact on Memphis, not what has impact on Nashville or Knoxville or Genesee.
So much of what you described would at least affirm for me what I perceived your target audience to be.
Right.
And so I'm still concerned primarily about, and we talked about this last time, how your staff looks in relationship to who you just described your target audience to be.
Right.
And when we talked last time, you talked some about the struggles of trying to hire some people of color, diversify your newsroom, if you will.
Right.
And I think since we've talked, maybe for every person of color you hired, I think you hired 2.
Oh, I think we hired 4 people in the last month or so. Jared's here, and we had an African American male, we had 2 white female, and a white male.
So that's
3 to 1.
So
we didn't take a step ahead.
You didn't.
Our newsroom, if you count the partnership with Chalkbeat, and it's around 20-25% African American, and we're still there. And our hiring, I'm not gonna
overcommit.
I'm not gonna. I was gonna use the swear word. I'm in a church. I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna.
Okay, I'm not.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Just so you're free to speak.
It is. It is what it is.
No, you.
I gotta tell you the truth. So we tried. We looked. And we are no better than the industry standard, or the industry norms, which is 20-25%.
There's a lot of ways I can respond to that. I want to try to.
Now I will say this: we are 50% female, give or take, and that I think we should get credit, and that's more reflective. Sure. And I think that is no small thing. We sort of take that for granted a little bit more, but it shouldn't be. But I'm not trying to deflect from what you're saying.
I don't think so, but I think you are trying to give me the angle onto the part where you should be applauded, which I don't think I've pulled any punches. As a matter of fact, even before you just said what you said, I was going to say, hey, that's about the standard of what the county looks like. That's more reflective. But I do hear a certain type of apathy almost with regards to the racial thing, which I think
apathy.
Yes, it's like, well, we're about to.
No, I
understand.
Hey, we took
a good old try.
Somebody else said that to me. I think at Lemoyne. That I responded to an answer, and they thought I'm looking over at Chris because he was there, and they said, "Well, it's Apple." Or they said something like that. That the way you just responded, Eric, it makes it sound like you're just that's the way it is. I really don't feel that way. It frustrates me.
Okay.
But I think when I say it that way, and I need to do it differently, particularly when I just realized I'm on camera. I'm deflated by it a little bit, and that's not apathy. That is, and it's also not acceptance. Mm-hmm. It is frustration, and I don't. It's disappointment. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way, But
Right.
I'm not giving up on that. And you know, I hope we will hire more people in the coming year, and we will do our best to be as diverse as we possibly can. We all see the world through our experiences, you know, and I believe that. And
So part of the press is, again, just trying to hold you to the standards by which you have promoted yourself. So if you say you're not going to do status quo news, if you say that you're committed to making sure that your newsroom doesn't look like, then obviously you are asking for pushback when you say,
sure,
hey,
absolutely, that's fine.
So the other
right.
piece, and I think this will be my last one, because I'm pretty sure I'll comment when some other people make some remarks and some comments too, is back to the metrics piece, or back to the infrastructure piece. What have you done since the last time that we talked that would lead us, that would lead me to be able to ask people, say to people in Whitehaven, or even just people at Abyssinia, or people in Memphis, you know what, they are trying. So
I'm trying to reach Whitehaven residents with news we think is of value and importance. Are we trying to do that?
So value,
or are we hiring diversity?
What is the hiring practice in terms of the change? Because you keep going back to value and importance, and I keep going back to nuance, because that's what you promised. Because I'm sure Commercial Appeal says they're giving stories of value and importance. I'm sure the Daily Memphian says they're giving stories of value and importance. I'm sure the Tri-State Defender says.
Right.
But that's not right. And that's not where you started, though, brother. You started with this idea of we're providing an angle and a perspective that other outlets aren't providing.
Well, I think in aggregate we are. On every story? No, I mean we've done.
So
wait. Let me respond to some of what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me respond to some of what you're saying. I think we are in aggregate absolutely better than the Commercial Appeal, and that we are the quality of the writing and the depth of the journalism is better. Now you can say a given story we fell down on, and a given story they did better than us on. But I think in aggregate we're absolutely better.
What I'm gonna say is, I want you to be.
No, I appreciate it.
But I can't.
I believe it.
But I can't validate that you are.
Right.
So tell me how to validate that you are.
But you're asking. But okay, so you're asking that the something very subjective gets, which is the value, importance, and quality of what we do. You're trying to boil that into a metric. Now, if you're trying to ask me, if you want to know what the metrics of our readership are,
how many times have I asked you that?
No, you keep moving on from that.
Okay.
I asked you the zip code thing, and we went down a different. But you're not going to like my answer. But we went on a different.
Is it going to be honest?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely honest.
I like it.
Which is we don't know to a percentage point what the breakdown of our audience is. So I'll walk you through a bunch of demographics. Okay? And it's kind of it's a picture. It's a picture that you kind of get together.
I just want to say it's not that I don't like what you just said.
Yeah.
I am amazed by it because I know what the alternative looks like. I know what it looks like for us. I know I can't walk into the same rooms you walked into and not have that figured out.
Oh no. I think you're putting. You misunderstood, or I'm not being clear about something.
Okay.
So I go into a room to say I was brought into the room, frankly, to say, all right, there needs to be a better and higher quality news source. And we talked through what does that mean.
You just don't want can worms. I'm not going to do it. We're going to follow up on this
conversation. And what that means is a long, complicated, set of goals and
metrics is the word.
No, not metrics.
Standards?
Not metrics. Standards
okay.
of higher quality news that isn't obsessed with crime, news that is narrowly focused on I'll say greater Memphis. When I say Memphis, I mean what we just defined before.
Yeah.
That is written by people who understand Memphis and know Memphis, and is built on a financial model that is sustainable. Okay, which means that it will pay for itself after a set number of years. So those are the kind of broad outlines of what people said. And that included, by having high quality news that's by for Memphis, that would include all of Memphis, not just the Poplar corridor. So all those things were laid out, and through a series of conversations with a bunch of people, can this be done? And I said, I think we can, and I think this is how we can do it. And there are pages and pages and pages of financial and other documents that went into this thing. So it's not like I just went in and they said, hey, here's a 50-year-old white guy, we'll give him some money. Which I think is the, yeah, I am 50. Well, thank you. Which is, I think, and I don't mean it in an ugly way, but I do think, I get that. I get that I'm a 50-year-old white guy, and there's this all this privilege that comes from that.
It goes something that I think is missing in our exchange that you helped clarify. I never knew you were called into the run.
Yeah.
That means there were people who already had the idea germinating, and you were for lack of better, you were the chosen one. You kneel.
They
kneel in the matrix of media.
I kind of like that, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true at all, but I mean, we go with it because it's your church.
Okay.
Well, I mean, because I had run the Daily News and I'd done the show on WKNO, and people felt like, well, there's a place we could start, and that he's not obsessed with, the Daily News is not obsessed with crime, it's not obsessed with negativity, it doesn't mind doing a story that's just positive, and period, it's positive. So I think, yeah, I mean, I have been in publishing for 30 years. I mean, it wasn't like...
No, I just thought that you convened the room. I didn't
know.
So that's a different...
I mean, and yeah, oh, okay.
I hear you.
Yeah. So on metrics, back to metrics. So metrics, what you end up doing, because you can't get zip code, you can't, unless we ask people, and ask people on a reader survey, okay? So the way our payment processor works, when you put in your credit card, like I was saying before, you got to put it in, but it doesn't come to us. It goes to the payment processor. You don't want me to have it from a security point of view. You don't want me having this stuff. When these credit cards get stolen, that's all the direction everybody's going. I don't want all that stuff stored in my database or anywhere. So we don't know from that. We know from, we can't track from even down to neighborhood level. So you can track internet connection, but it all basically says, I think it says 80%. What did we look at with Kevin? It's like 80% is coming from Shelby County and 15% is coming from Atlanta. And you think, why are we getting all that traffic from Atlanta? No. It just routes through Atlanta and comes here. You don't know. So as much as they can kind of track you on your phone, I can't, because I'm not AT&T. I'm just the guy, down there. You can use a company called Quantcast. Quantcast kind of makes guesses at who's using your site, and they do it this way. They basically say, if you're a guy, how do I do this? If they'll do stereotype a kid. If you're a user on the internet who constantly goes to Disney and really watches young cartoons, and that's your internet traffic, they will basically profile you as probably an 8-year-old girl based on the shows you go to on Disney.com and how much time you spend there and the frequency of Nickelodeon and so on. And they'll stereotype you as they'll profile you on they don't know who you are, but they profile you as an 8-year-old girl, and now you're going to the Daily Memphian all the time. Well, that counts as, okay, we think that she's an 8-year-old girl, and they'll even extrapolate out, they think she's white or Hispanic or black. Quantcast says we're maybe 10 to 20% African American, okay? Which would be way below the area. I have a big problem with that because what's the African American population in the United States is?
In the United States,
about 10%.
12.
So their model, which is a national model, I have real doubts that model works in a place like Memphis. Because, I mean, they're profiling our traffic against the nation. Now, they may be 100% right, and maybe that's where we are. I would be shocked. I have no way to know this. I would be shocked if we were anywhere near 50% African American, because of this number one reason. Everything I've heard from you and from at the Lemoyne meeting and on the street and over the years I've been doing journalism is that local journalism has alienated African Americans at such a high rate. As Dr. Brown said to me, it's going to be a while before I give you a chance. Not for anything, and she admitted, I don't want to say her because it might have been somebody else. Someone at Lemoyne said, I don't read you, I won't read you, I am sick of local news. Okay, that was not Dr. Brown, I want to be clear. But somebody there said that to me. And they got very mad at me about things I'd done, and I was like, but you haven't read the site. Well, what she meant was me as a media guy, as a local media guy. So we have to earn, it is a much higher hurdle than I realized for us to earn the respect and trust and patience of communities that have been portrayed so badly in local media, of which we are a part broadly. So there's that, okay? We also, we know we skew, so other metric, that's the best guess I have, okay? Other metrics we do have from surveys we've done, we didn't ask black, white, we didn't ask, did we ask male, female? We asked male, female, and we asked income level. We skewed, readership was like, what was male, do you remember? 50%, or was it 55% male? And we skewed higher income than Memphis, the median average. I mean, it was clear. And education level skewed, college level was 50% plus, college level, okay? So, but we didn't ask the zip code.
Give me a number on the income piece. You were very vague.
I should have looked at it.
Give me a ball.
I want to, you want to go 70 or 50? 65. Now, this is people who responded to a non-scientific survey, etc.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold it as.
But I think that I gotta say, none of that surprises me. And I would bet that I didn't say don't misunderstand me saying I'm happy with that. But it doesn't surprise me, given the people crying for given the distrust of local media. I'll just put it that way. I mean that particularly is prevalent in African American communities, and it's in other communities as well.
Well, we have a good 30 minutes. I want to give plenty of time for people to make a remark and or question, and hopefully you can couch your remark and or question concisely. Let's say a minute or so. And what I would actually ask, since it is recording, and I wanted people to.
Oh, you want to come up?
Yeah, I would like whoever wanted to ask the question to just.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And one more thing.
Yeah.
Can we have the third meeting? Because obviously we don't get it all done tonight. The third meeting, and I'll say that this.
Can we do it? Can we do it in like 2-3 months? I'll just have more data, I'll have more information. Trying to do it in a month.
No, but then come on, Eric. There's October, November, December. So don't make it seem like I only gave you 2 weeks. You know, like I wasn't handling you like that.
Let's do it in 2 months.
So you're saying before the end?
2 months.
You're saying before the end of?
Before the end of
March.
Before
the end of March.
Before the end of March.
Okay.
I will be here.
All right.
Do this again. I promise. And I got your number now too.
Don't worry. I know how fast.
And you can always email me. I'm an old guy. You got to email me.
All right. So please, one at a time, come make your remark and your question, and please state your name too, so Brother Barnes will know.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paula Anderson. I am a freelance journalist. So I have a question and then I have a comment. So my comment is, based on your research, what was your customer discovery when you developed the online model for your publication? So did you go out and talk to customers that you wanted to be potential readers?
Yeah.
Okay, so what data do you have to support that process?
I'm not sure what data do we have. I mean, we did not do any formal surveys prior to the launch of the Daily Memphian, but we did a whole lot of conversations with people, black, white, old, young.
Qualitative data. So is it documented where it's like public? So that's not really research, right? It is not documented.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not public. I'm just shaking my head to that. It's not public.
Well, is it documented though?
Yeah. Yes.
So when he's asking questions about, your readership, should you be referring back to that data to answer those questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't mean to say that we are satisfied with something like 20 or 25%. If that's what it is, 15 to 20% African American readership, we're not satisfied with that. So we want. I mean, in an ideal world, at the end of 5 years, we would look, if not sooner, but if it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. Our readership would look like Memphis. Income, diversity, male, female, the whole thing. So that's what we're trying to get to. And so this is also, this is not like you build a Honda and you buy it. I shouldn't call it you. Someone buys it, and that's the car you have for the next 5 years. We are constantly changing what we're doing. I mean, I talked about the crime policy and changing that. We just, changes to arts and culture, changes to political coverage, changes to everything. That, okay, this is, we do watch the data on an obsessive basis of what articles are being read, what can we do to get them more read. This story is really important, but it hasn't been much read. How do we put that on social media to bring attention to it? How do we put it in email and so on? So it's not just that we built a car that drives, and we hope everyone kind of jumps onto it. It's we are constantly adapting and changing what we do. So that may or may not have answered your question, but
not exactly.
Okay.
So do you have a customer persona? I mean, do you have like 5 top people that you can identify as to who your customer is and who you want to read the publication?
So I want to get a 25-year-old college grad sort of person. We haven't done that kind of formal those personas. I know what you got the profile. We haven't done those.
Okay. So my question is the story about Dr. Miller and the plagiarism.
Yes.
So whose decision was that to kind of publicize that based on, I don't know if the meeting that you had at Lamont was prior to that or after that?
It was prior to.
Okay, so knowing.
So I think it was. Go ahead, finish. Sorry.
Knowing that would further damage the African American community with that being a historically black college university,
Yeah.
whose decision was that to run that story?
It was the editor's decision, and it was not to publicize that. It was that at Lemoyne, one of the prominent academic institutions in Memphis, some 29 of the 30 faculty, virtually all of the faculty, all but a couple, had voted no confidence about their president. Lemoyne would not comment and would not respond. We gave them a week and went back to them and asked and said, please, could we talk to Dr. Miller? Could we get the other side of this? Can we talk to someone? And they did not respond.
And so, Chris, you do the marketing, right, for the 101. So that's kind of not sending a good message to the community.
But it is a fact that the predominantly African American faculty of Lemoyne has major issues with Dr. Miller, and that is noteworthy.
Well, my question is, if you're trying to offer a different perspective, if you're trying to paint African Americans in a different perspective than what the commercial appeal has,
Right.
then why are you doing some of the similar things that's going to be even more dangerous?
I don't know how we don't do that sort of.
Okay.
And so, come on, Doctor. Okay, so can you state, and then I'll almost verbatim Earle Walker talked about during the first meeting when she was making her comments. I'm sure she probably has a comment on a question too, so thanks to that. But I would say in response to that, building on that, and Chris, I definitely want to try to revisit this piece about the Lemoyne thing. When you first said that about what was said at that other meeting, I was thinking accessibility matters too, and you have a paywall, right? So even if I say to you, I'm not dealing with people in the black community say we're not looking at the news all the time and still watching.
Yeah.
So I think part of that challenge, so I think Dr. Jenkins brings up a wonderful analysis of your conceptuality of who we are and what our capabilities are, what our interests are, irrespective of what may come out of a handful or even a group of people's mouth through articulation. But accessibility was one thing. And the second thing that I just want to say, a cautionary tale, maybe, what I foresee you saying in 5 years is, we tried, but this is what the market demands, so we just gonna go this way.
That is what local media does. I mean, and my commitment is that we're not going to do that, and the board is committed that we're not going to do that.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, that all you can do is
Man got the emoji.
What was your question?
So
Paul brought up this situation about communication from Lamont, but also that because he said he was trying to get in contact with administration.
Yeah.
But you do.
Yeah. So a couple of things about that. And Eric knows. As soon as we know that store was running, I reached out immediately because of concerns. I mean, like your children, you love them, and you love them in different ways. And, you know, and you try to honor them in different ways. Same way with our clients. I mean, each one is different. Each one has a particular need. So in this particular situation, I've got a client on one end that's the Daily Memphian, and on the other end, Lamont 101 College. All right. One of the things that I know is that we don't have any influence over the editorial content of, you know, I can call, beg, plead, whatever. We don't. That's not our role. That's, you know, yeah. I mean, so the paper still has to be independent. My personal thoughts on that, and Eric knows, is that I did not think that was a story that necessarily needed to be published at that time. I do think that, you know, there's the old saying, there's three sides to every story. You know, both sides.
Your side, my side, and the
yeah,
truth.
and then the truth. I personally felt like, from the African American perspective, that story was more about kind of airing the dirty laundry, like the family business. All right, if they're professors or whomever who, you know, had no confidence, the important thing is that their board of trustees had complete confidence, and I think that maybe there could have been a little bit more due diligence on the story. Additionally, I think during the time in which they were reaching out to Dr. Miller was, I don't remember whether that was like Thanksgiving break or right before. There was like an extended break during that period of time, and she was on vacation, which I then have to also point to errors that were made on the side of Lamont. They did not necessarily, I think, have the appropriate points of contact in place to be able to respond appropriately during that time. Some decisions were made when they realized that the story was about to be written, that she was not communicated with, because they thought it was just, oh, it's nothing to this. So she was truly not necessarily informed that, hey, we got a situation that needs to be dealt with right now. And so from that, I think the story aired. Like I said, Eric and I, we talked, you know, about it, and I expressed my concern over that. But what I will say in Eric's defense, the first thing he said is, we will absolutely give Dr. Miller an opportunity to tell her side of the story and truly, you know, clear the air on this. And her board advised her not to make a statement. They issued a written statement internally, and that was not communicated to the press. And
There we have it.
there we have it.
And I hope this is obvious, but it needs to be said that, I mean, we're the faculty of the U of M, CPU, Rhodes, Southwest. To take that kind of vote, we would, that's a story we would do. Those are important institutions with huge alumni bases, just like Lemoyne, in this community, and so it was not something about targeting Lemoyne. And I knew that, you know, having that everything we've talked about distrust and negativity, I knew that we were going to take some heat for that. I think also other people were, you know, Lemoyne alums were glad to know that that was going on. You know, they're being asked to raise money, they're being asked to contribute. I mean, there's clearly some kind of conversation that's being had at Lemoyne right now. And I've met Dr. Brown, I've interviewed her before, she seems fabulous to me. I love the direction she's taking Lemoyne is great, and I wish that we could regain some kind of relationship with them to do other stories about some of the really great things that are going on at Lemoyne. I really do. I mean, we did back at Daily News, we did on the show some years ago when she got there, and it is not some sort of thing where we say, well, your faculty, you know, voted that no confidence, and that's all we're going to ever cover about Lemoyne. We want to cover other
Do
things.
y'all have other stories that you cover from the morning that were positive stories?
I don't know the Daily Memphian. I mean, they haven't really been willing to talk to us very much. So.
I had a long talk with Jerome Wright today about repairing that relationship.
Okay.
I took that upon myself. So.
Cool,
Yeah.
good.
So hopefully we will. I mean, again, so if gets no confidence vote, we're going to write about that. The next day they open a new, high-tech facility, we're going to write about that.
Next, come on, Pearl. And then,
I can do it from right here if that's okay.
well, look, for the sake of the camera stuff, can you please? Pretty please, thank you.
He can swing it around. Earle Walker, Whitehaven stakeholder, founder and administrator of Memphis Raised Expectations on Facebook, and founder of the new I Love Whitehaven Neighborhood Association. So my question deals with press releases. Is there a protocol? What is the procedure as to how you respond to press releases in regard to if you're going to respond, if you're going to do a story based on a press release?
We don't respond to, unfortunately, we just have the staff to respond to every press release and say we are or we aren't. We generally will respond and say, hey, if it's something we're going to do, we'll generally say, hey, we have a couple more questions, we need to check a couple of things and so on. But most of the press releases come in either to James Overstreet, the editor-in-chief, or to releases at dailymemphian.com. Then people like Jared here, or Earle, who's also one of our reporters, that build a relationship with them, and then they'll send it to Jared directly
So
or
I
Jeff
need
directly.
to
Or something.
get Derek
Well, I
email
think I-
addresses.
Jared just started. You're taking Whitehaven, or are you not? Or are you? I don't
Well,
want to
it's
put
not
this on him, but do
necessarily
this on the
about
fly
Whitehaven,
here.
but the page Memphis Raise Your Expectations, we hosted a forum on the referendum, the IRB and the other items on the referendum, and we had the president of the Shelby County Democratic Party there, Corey Strong. We had 3 currently seated elected officials. We had the co-chair of IRB here in Memphis. He was there on the panel as well. The president and the executive director of the NAACP were both there. And we sent you all a press release, but it wasn't covered. And then we had the Whitehaven Marketplace that was part of the Christmas parade.
Which you highlighted, and I wish, I will stop short of apologizing, but I wish we'd been able to cover that. And because you talked about that last time I was here, and that we should have been able to do that because we could have planned ahead. It wasn't in the froth of the election season. We didn't. In terms of the forum, don't feel singled out. There were a lot of forums. I mean, there were a lot of people on the ballot, and we didn't cover all of them. There was just no way that we could possibly cover every forum and every discussion and every debate. And
So you're saying it's about staffing?
yeah, I mean, and that would be the case if we had, keep in mind, it's 15 years ago, the Commercial Appeal had a newsroom of 220 people, and they still didn't get to every story. We have a newsroom of 35, 40.
And coming soon, week after next, there's going to be the first Whitehaven Black Restaurant Week. So who do I need to send that press release to? Can I leave with a good email address tonight?
Let's get back to Elle.
Yeah.
Elle is right there. She's
I
going to
would
get
love it,
her.
but I think that she's the one.
Okay, let's get that to Elle, and I can't promise you that we'll get coverage of that, but we will try. We will try.
So you got Lakeitha first, and
Okay. All right, we'll come back to you.
yeah. I still want to ask y'all to come up, please. What's the U.S.?
Like 50% of the time.
Okay, so my question and comment deals with intentionality versus sensationalism versus college check. As an engaged reader, I'm not always thinking of myself as a black reader. I'm thinking of myself as a reader who wants to find out about finance. I want to read Success Magazine because I want to be different, or I want to read Motorcycle Magazine because I like motorcycles, right? So that does make your job difficult or challenging to make sure you stay in the middle and find the right balance. But when you started the conversation earlier, you talked about your model being very different and unique to other newspaper sources. And if that's the case, what are the top 3 engagement values that you are really emphasizing and sticking to make sure that your newspaper resonates with that engaged reader?
That's a good question. You know, we're things we look at. We look constantly at traffic. So traffic has been growing steadily in terms of just page views to the site. We look constantly at email. People get the free email editions, morning, afternoon, breaking news. Increasingly, there's week in review type, business week in review, politics week in review, food launched I think today. So we look at those numbers, you know, obsessively. You know, how many people subscribe, how many people open them. Those numbers you can get. You don't know who they are or male, female, or anything like that, but you know if it's happening. Paid subscriptions is, I mean, that's probably number one that we're looking at, just because we are on this path to try to be sustainable. Is, you know, where is our rate of paid subscriptions? Then, you know, after that, there's a tremendous amount of anecdotal, gut feel stuff that goes on. You know, I'd like to say that it weren't. Someone should sigh on behalf of Earle Fisher, but because he's out of the room. But there's a lot of gut feel that goes into it. What kind of feedback do we get? You know, I go out and I'm somewhere and somebody comes up and says, "Earle did this incredible job." Yancy with the art project she had, and just was so ecstatic. You know, that this was the only person in media in Memphis who got the story right about this installation. This is Yancy Villa Calvo, and just please tell her. And it was great. Come back. Earle feels great. I feel great. We feel like, and did that story go off the charts? Was it number one that day? I don't think it was, but that, in some ways, that anecdote that somebody would say that to us outweighed the metrics, you know, the hard numbers of that day. So it's this constant, you know, mix of the hard numbers that we look at on those kind of areas I talked about in terms of how much readership and is it growing and so on, and the gut feel and anecdotal feedback you get. And who is that feedback from? I know this from the show. I mean, on WKNO for 9 years, you know, they don't have Nielsen ratings. They don't do any of that stuff. So it's just, I have no idea who's watching, you know. But I can kind of gauge on what people say when they say something to me to a restaurant. And I can, you know, when they say something to me on the street, when they wait, you know, they say something from the car and they say, "Hey, I like your show." And it makes me feel good that anecdotally, that audience is absolutely representative of Memphis. You know, I mean, people sort of, so that stuff matters a lot. I think it matters a lot to reporters. I don't know. I look at Jared and Earle. I mean, it just matters when somebody gives you positive feedback, like, "Hey, you were hard on that person," or "Hey, you were great about that," or what it could be. You know, anecdotal stuff matters a lot. Social media is great at that. You start getting likes and shares. That's another one we look at. Did I kind of hit?
No. Yeah, I guess I wasn't looking for like quantitative.
Okay.
Like how should I feel after I've subscribed to your newspaper and I've read your newspaper from front to finish online, and I want to come back over and over again?
You should feel informed about
What does the customer feel like, and what is the value behind sticking to what those customers?
Well, I think it's going to be a range of emotions on any given day. What's in the news? Because we don't make the news, obviously. So you might read it and feel great about things that are going on in Memphis. You might read it on a given day and feel really, really bad about what's going on in Memphis. And you most likely are going to have a range of emotions in between all that.
So
I am not there to. But I want to be clear. We're not there to. I'm not. We are not doing a paper every day that is meant to make people feel good.
Right.
It is not at all. If you feel good, that's good. But if you feel good about an officer-involved shooting, or you feel good that there's a rat-infested school in Ridgeway, or you feel good about certain bad things that happen. I mean, you shouldn't. But that's what happened that day. So.
And I want to just point out, Eric, about your tagline or your motto about truth. I think that may speak to what you're talking about. Truth in place.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say even come on, Micah, and I would just say again, the responses that I'm hearing now do not seem to affirm what would ultimately become a product that is far different from what other newspapers are putting out. And that's what I keep trying to push you back to. And I keep talking about nuance because I keep hearing you say, we're trying to do something different. We're not going to be just, and then when I hear you respond to some of the inquiries, and I think you're being sincere,
Yeah.
Now, I don't think you're answering the questions, but I think you're being sincere.
I think you don't like my answer.
So look, let's just say that could be the case. Nevertheless, what I think is the end result is that you can't have both. You can't have a, hey, we're doing the best we can, and a, no, we're doing the best we can, even though our numbers, our output, and other, if we want to call them metrics, look like the other newspaper outlets look. But you keep saying that.
I just disagree with you.
Okay.
I mean, I think and I don't think we look. I mean, you can look at the commercial appeal right now, what's on its homepage, and you can look at ours, and there'll be some crossover stories. That's just the way it is. But I think that in aggregate, what we did today is qualitatively better, very, very much better than what the commercial appeal did. I don't think it's the same.
Okay.
Dr. Fisher, thank you, and Eric, it's good to see you here. This summer, you and I talked at 409 South Main, and I brought up the issue of the disparity between the racial makeup of your reporters. And you said that you were going to do something about that, work towards that. I'm sitting here now, and you just said that you hired 3 whites versus 1 black. Then I just hear you say in response to Pro Walker, that you all have to select what we want to read. To a certain extent, and I'm getting these emails every day, wake up in the morning, the last one I got had, I think, 2 articles about Germantown, liquor store, things of that nature. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Whitehaven, South Memphis, and I would like to be informed about the entire city, but I don't see that representation from like what I would really be concerned about. So how do you know what I want to read if you don't have enough of us in place to kind of give you that insight?
Well, I think that it's a fair point, and what you said was also said to us by people in Germantown. And so, just in the order of hiring and who was available and who could start, Abigail Warren started in the end of November, early December, covered Germantown and Collierville, and got right to work. And I think that other people we've hired, we will expand our coverage in Whitehaven and other communities. And that was just a function of when people could start and who was available. I don't, we will continue to try to be intentional about diversifying the staff. It is going to be difficult. I've always said it was going to be difficult. If I didn't, I apologize. But we will continue to try to find a diverse group of people to join the staff.
Eric, Joe Kent, good to meet you.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever met personally.
Nope.
So I think the way that you could differentiate between the other news outlets is if you start questioning real power. And I'm talking about Memphis Tomorrow, talking about Edge, talking about the Chamber. Nobody has called for a new Edge board. None of the there's been no editorials to say, hey, we need a new Edge board.
We don't do unbylined editorials.
You don't do what?
We don't do unbylined editorials. So if you, we have 2, I'm sorry, I'm going to just stop you right there. We don't, unlike traditional newspapers, which do, as many as 1, 2, or 3 unbylined editorials, this is what we believe. We don't do them. It was an explicit decision not to do that. We do have Oda Sanford writing a more left-leaning most days column, and Mike Nelson writing a more right-leaning column, I did it backwards. And then guest columns across the spectrum. I've invited Pastor Earle across the spectrum, so we can talk about this afterward if you'd like to call that out. I mean, I am on your newsletter, but I'm not going to just turn around and read your emails. But if guest columnists have that opinion that these bad things are happening, and they have a rational opinion and some background in doing so, we will absolutely publish that. Keep going.
So, I guess nobody's even what I'm looking for, I guess, is none of, and I will say this in defense of the Daily Memphian to a degree, is none of the news outlets have come out and even suggested that we needed a new Edge board. And everybody pretty much knows that the accounting they've been using is bogus for the last 7 years. I think everybody knows that. and at a significant loss to taxpayers. And in addition to that, on your reporting, and I'll give you an example of a recent story. It wasn't a big pilot, but it was one that Wayne Risher wrote about. But it was also on the other ones. It was on the Mark Anthony pilot. And the significance of that story was that the Edge Board approved a pilot that lost taxpayers $500,000, and they paid themselves $51,000 in fees. And that was not said in the article. So that was the significance of that pilot. It was a small pilot. It was for 30 warehousing jobs, abating existing taxes that were already existing. So, I mean, I just think that if we, and Memphis Tomorrow is down in every category using taxpayer money. Every category. And since Memphis Tomorrow was founded, the city has gone downhill while their initiatives use taxpayer money. So I just wish you would, there's nobody that's confronting that. Nobody.
Well, let me address a little bit of what you're talking about. I think that we have done, it is not our, we are not out to have a kind of biased perspective or a particular perspective on,
Any issue.
on issues. I mean, there's certain things, climate change, racism, sexism. I mean, there's certain things that are absolutely, in terms of these things, not everyone agrees with your data at all. There's a very healthy debate out there about what's going on with pilots and so on. We've done, I mean, it's a joke in the show how often we talk about pilots and incentives and so on. And we have healthy debates with people across the full spectrum, politicians, business people, and we've done, I don't even know, 20 or 30 shows on that whole issue over the last 9 years, probably more than that in some fashion. We've done some on, we've certainly covered people raising questions about what Edge is doing. I mean, Martavius, who's obviously been an elected official with a lot of things to say about Edge and how that's happening. We've, I think, given fair voice to him and others.
Are you grouping the show and the newspaper together right now?
Well, thank you for doing that. I'm tired. I've been up since 5:30. I will say this. What I meant was, but thank you for bringing the show because that's not an
Okay.
I meant to sort of say, look, I am not one as president executive editor who shies away from challenging what's going on with incentives and so on. We have done lots of stories of ones that have been delivered. I think that, again, as we go forward, you'll see more and more of us looking deeper into pilots, breaking down outcomes, what was promised, delivered. We will get there. And so we will do more. There's a difference between sort of having a negative bias against pilots and then having some amount of healthy skepticism. Are these really good? I think there have been a lot of questions about the Union Row incentives, and I think we've aired people who raised those in our articles. We've raised those. So again, I didn't mean to conflate the show. I just meant to talk about editorial philosophy. I think you'll see over time that the Daily Memphian will absolutely raise questions and accountability about pilots and incentives.
Well, one thing, real quick, the accounting, it's okay I expect people to disagree with my data, like you just said, but the accounting used on retention pilots is factually bogus.
All right. So let's put a pin on that, Joe. And I know that, there are other comments and perspectives too. Again, we already got a commitment that there will be a follow-up conversation before the end of March. You all heard it. No.
But may I interject quickly? But in regard to Memphis Tomorrow, have you all ever done a story on Memphis Tomorrow? Or do you have a judgment as to why none of the major outlets will do a story on Memphis Tomorrow?
We probably, I'm sure we've mentioned that we've not done any story about this is Memphis Tomorrow, this is who's on the board, this is what they do. We haven't done that story. And I think it's a story we should do, I think. I think it's it's a very influential group of people, and with a lot of power and authority, what goes on economically and policy-wise. We did talk about Memphis Tomorrow when it came out that they funded.
You did.
Funded the police. Yeah, say explicitly, we're not shying away. We're not sort of. We haven't made some editorial policy that we don't talk about Memphis Tomorrow or anything like that. I mean, that's certainly not the case. So I think we waited for something newsworthy to go on, just because again we've been behind on some things. I mean, we haven't gotten everything done we wanted to do. I'm not making excuses. I'm just being honest.
Last comment.
So my name is Steve Waller. I'd like to say in the comment that I actually start from a really different place mathematically than some other people. And I'm saying that to disarm you in one sense because I'm not trying to be antagonistic, but I actually still really end up at some of the same questions, which is surprising. So for me, because the city is 65% black approximately, doesn't mean that like the workers who work in this field, that 65% of them is black. So I don't necessarily think that your newsroom has to look that way. And so I can give that. I can give some of the things about who your constituency was. So while I was sitting here, this is looking at some data on the median income of Memphians, right? And 65,000, I just can say we know what that looks like, right? And so I don't think that that's something that we have to guess or pontificate or like, you know, be shy about. My challenges are really that when it came to, so this is our goal, how are we going to reach that? And so it sounds a lot like what Earle was saying. So one way that somebody might presuppose that you try to diversify would be the hiring. I get that it won't be 65%, but I'm looking for what your recruiting might look like. My brother here asked values, and I was really listening to hear a value word, and I just never heard it.
I think I misunderstood.
Then I think the other thing that's really interesting is all of your goals, the only one that I think that we could talk about realistically would be the metric of sustainability. And if that becomes the only metric, then we're going to be appealing to the people who make the 65,000. And so I'm actually willing to wait until the end of March for you to come back and talk about what you came up with recruiting or what the top values are or what some metric is. And I will offer what Earle said as a suggestion, ironically. So even if you cover the thing on Lemoyne, and I don't think that all the stories have to be, you know, like skewed that way, but I think what he's talking about in nuance was there no different perspectives that could have been offered, because that's what we see in the commercial appeal is like this, you know, and so so this is also a pushback to your like I'm neutral, we don't have a perspective. I don't think media can ever be that. So
I would agree with that. I think it's about being you know, you can go all the way left, you can go all the way right. We're not doing that. We're trying to be as reasonably, you know, down the middle as we can, and report, you know, truth and facts. But look, everyone's got bias. Everyone's got even just perspective. So I don't think there's some platonic ideal of like, you know, ultimately objective news. I don't think so at all. I think to pick up on what you said about the staff not, you know, is it about the staff, you know, being representative of the community? I hope it will be. I do think that the stories we cover should be, okay? And part of that is going to be expanding what we do in Whitehaven and in Orange Mound and Fraser and predominantly African American communities. And we haven't done enough stories in those communities. There are some reasons for that, some things that didn't work out the way we intended. I mean, this stuff happens. But I'll own that without a doubt. Now, I think we've done a good job. I think we've covered good stories. I mean, good as in not just positive or negative, but just quality stories that are part of our mission in predominantly black neighborhoods or having predominantly impact or influence on African American people. I don't want to say otherwise, but I don't think we've done enough. So there's some sort of sense that this paper should look like on any given day, like the greater Memphis area. And that means that the people in the photos and the people who are quoted and the people that we're writing about, the neighbors we're writing about, are north, south, east, west, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, kind of sort of looks like Memphis. And we're not there yet. I mean, I will absolutely own that. Okay?
Well, I think that wraps us up. Any last minute comments?
I have a quick comment. Maybe when we come back in March,
We got somewhere to go.
Joe can have a guest column.
Can we what?
So that's
Joe can have a guest
that's
column.
conversation that y'all can have with him after we
I keep asking him.
But I told you I wasn't gonna submit one until you followed up on what you said.
Oh, is that what you
do?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, now it's your turn.
I'll pray about it. I want to thank y'all for coming out, and definitely hope that everybody can commit to coming back.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Eric for
Yeah, thank you all for
following
being
through
here.
and
Thank you
Chris
very
and all
much.
that.
I really do
So,
appreciate it.
uh,
I appreciate
Your
your
patience has been important. Your time this evening
Yeah.
has been important. So thanks again. Please, everybody, consider yourself dismissed. And if you want to come up and talk to them, I can keep the church open for maybe another 15 to 20 minutes.